Welcome to I Drink, Therefore I Am, a think tank media podcast, hosted by international spirits educator and whiskey ambassador, Martin C. Duffy. Each episode, Marty sits down with distillers, brand builders, and industry insiders to talk about the craft, the culture, and the business behind the spirits world. Pour yourself something appropriate, and let's get into it.
Hello, everybody. Jack Loeb here. Hi, I'm Martin Duffy, and this is I Drink, Therefore I Am, where we discuss the industry with major movers and shakers of the industry. So today, all the way from beautiful Portland. Well, you're not actually in Portland anymore.
Yeah, you're close. You're close. It's the nearest airport.
There's all right. Closest airport is little Caitlin Bartlemay from Clear Creek Distillery. It's funny. It's not super old as far as distilleries go, but in the world of craft distilling, it kind of is. It's kind of one of the grandpas.
Yep. For sure.
In fact, I won't even start. I'll have you go into it. But first, let's talk about you, young lady.
About me.
I
like that you introduced me as little. That doesn't come up very often.
I don't know. I think, I compare all of us next to, say, King Kong or Godzilla. We're all really tiny. So Caitlin, you actually have a deceptively long career because you don't seem. I always thought of you as a much younger person, and I guess you still are. You're much younger.
No, I'm very old. I'm very old. You should see all these gray hairs that are right here.
I knew a guy in college who was all gray. That means nothing. But you've been at it for quite some time.
Yeah, 16 years.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't have, but at the same time, I knew that you were at Clear Creek when Steve McCarthy still owned it. So
Steve is who hired me. He hired me the day after my last final at Oregon State. So I have a food science degree, and I decided I wanted to be a distiller, sometime around winter term. And so I spent spring break cold calling every distillery in what I like to term the greater Pacific Northwest area. So I was being very, I was being very kind with what I considered the margins of the Pacific Northwest. So I was including Northern California, Idaho, and Montana, along with Oregon and Washington. And there were 12 distilleries, including Hood River Distillers, who was still a rectifier at that point in time in their business history, with no active distillation happening for the business. There's 12, and that same geographic area, there's over 200 now.
So that's kind of funny that here you are and you're still in college, and you know what? I'm going to go into distilling, and then you cast it. That's a pretty wide net. You threw, looking.
Well, that was a wide net, but there was 12.
Well, I know. Well, I meant geographically.
Sure. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. I was always fascinated by Clear Creek. I went out and visited back in the old days at the old distillery.
Which one are you considering the old one? Because we've actually been in 3 locations. So the original location was just 2 stills on 23rd and Quimby in downtown Portland. The distillery that I grew up in was on 24th and Wilson, which had all 4 of the Arnold Holstein pot stills that was there. It was like a blue and yellow building, and there was like a coffee roaster next door. So that was Clear Creek Distillery moved there in 2009.
This had a pretty cozy little visitor center. I don't know the streets of Portland very well. So.
Sure, that's totally fair.
But the production area was, you walk through the door into the production area, and it was pretty sizable.
Yeah, so that would have been the second location. The first location is now a tequila bar. So it was small in comparison. Yeah.
And staying in the industry.
For sure.
So quickly, tell us a little bit about Clear Creek and even about Stephen himself, who, like I said, is kind of he was the first wave of craft distillers.
Yeah, we are
Name
the
and
third craft distillery in the country behind St. George and Germain Robin, all three brandy distilleries. So I find it, really interesting when you talk about brandy as a category and how, 42 years later, 41 years later, we're still, beating that drum for the rich history, the deeply agrarian roots of brandy, and the fact that brandy as a category isn't scary. It's actually really beautiful and really the spirit of the people, because it's the spirit of wherever you happen to be. So it's when you talk about, what are now marketing terms, orchard to glass, grain to glass, like there is nothing more raw material to glass, and honestly economic raw material to glass when it comes to the amount of effort that it takes to make a brandy. Fruit is desperate to be alcohol. It's an incredible category to get into. But yeah, Steve McCarthy, he had traveled abroad with an outdoor gear, adventure travel gear company that his dad had started called Michaels of Oregon. And when growing it into a multinational, he was, traveling across Europe, fell in love with the same tradition that we're trying to educate American consumers on now, which is, the turning fruit into brandy and really giving something that doesn't have, it's easier to share than it was pre-refrigeration, but still difficult to share a bite of a perfectly ripe Bartlett pear with the rest of the world. But if you turn it into pear brandy, boy, it's really easy to ship all the way around the world. And so he had sold Michaels of Oregon, wasn't sure what he was going to do with himself. But boy, he really did like that pear brandy. And an arm of his family tree actually still to this day is in the Hood River Valley growing Williams pears, also known as, Bartlett pears in the US, Williams pear in Europe. He was like, why don't I become a distiller? Can't be that hard.
yeah,
And so lucky for him, he reached out to Jorg Rupp, who was the founder at St. George. And Jorg Rupp, being an incredibly giving guy, was willing to help Steve get his start. So, he came up here and helped Steve source his equipment and told him what equipment that he needed to buy. Jorg, having grown up, he's Austrian. And so he grew up with the tradition of fruit brandy. And so when he immigrated, he was like, nobody's making fruit brandy. Like, well, I guess I'll do it. Like, I guess I'll teach these foolish Americans what they're missing out on. And yeah, so taught Steve everything, or, supplied him with books, with research material, came up and helped him with his first fermentation and distillation. So, a huge debt owed to Jorg and his generosity for the fact that, Clear Creek Distillery 42 years later is still a going concern when it comes to craft distilling. And certainly, St. George has done very well for themselves in their 46 years, I think, of history. And the team there is great, and they continue to make great things. So, it's worked out great for everybody.
I was, so I ventured out there, and I don't know, maybe I was out there for that the Portland Cocktail Week, or I don't know what I was out in Portland for at that point. But I made a point to go to Clear Creek because of McCarthy's single malt. Now, this is a 6-year-old, but you had a 3-year-old originally.
We still do.
And Steve was telling me I wanted to go meet him. And he took me through all his spirits, and he was telling me about, they're all based on his world travels. This one, I was working for Diageo at the time, pretty sure. And I represented Lagavulin, and he told me, he went to Scotland once and he had some Lagavulin, and it inspired him to make a peated single malt in the style of Lagavulin, except and I asked him, why was it, you made it 3 years old. Okay, I get it, because you wanted, just like in Scotland, it has to be a minimum of 3 years for it to be called a whiskey. But why not a 16? And he go, wow, sells too fast. People, I said, can't you leave one barrel away, to the side for 16 years? No, they people want it. So I want to sell it. I go,
I mean, the number of hearts that I have broken over the phone on some of those, early release days. And that was before we had the 6 year. It was just the 3 year. We won, best whiskey in the world 3 years in the aughts in a row with the McCarthys at 3 years old at 85 proof, which of course now we're kind of used to the proof wars. So sometimes people will be like 85 proof, why? And I'm like, you know what? Listen, like when we released that in 98, the fact that we were releasing a whiskey that was over 80 proof was a big deal. So now that Americans are used to, the proofier American single malts, and certainly, now that, the biggest, best, whatever for all the bourbon collectors is going to be a hazmat proof, like 85 seems tragically low, but it's good at 85. We like it at 85. But yeah, no, we would have those big release days in the tasting room, and all of the cases that went across the country and really around the world were heavily allocated. So it was just like every drop was accounted for, and we'd have X number of cases to sell out of the tasting room on release day, and we could take orders over the phone. And so they put me on phone duty for the first 2 or 3 years, and I, grown men crying on the phone. In fact, my predecessor, Joseph O'Sullivan, they actually had he had waited. This gentleman had apparently drove up from Arizona, had waited in line for hours all morning because there was a line around the block for the release. And by the time he got in the door, like the person in front of him had bought the last bottle, and they literally crying in person, like, you have no idea, like I drove so far and I've waited so long, you cannot be out. And Joseph actually went upstairs and they sold bottles out of Steve's private case.
Wow.
Doug and Steve wasn't there, and so they were just kind of like like sneak, grabbed 2 bottles out of Steve's personal case and sold it to this guy in Arizona, just because it was like
So Joe was there too at that time under Steven. So the two of you started?
Yeah, Joseph has worked for the company twice. Worked for the brand twice. Once when it was Steve, and then once again for Hood River Distillers. So Joseph was hired in 2005. He had moved to Portland, had an apartment on the same street. Knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I'd love a job. Do you have work for me?" And Steve said, "Can you fix barrels?" And Joseph wasn't, he's a carpenter. He's a finished carpenter. He was a trained cabinetry maker. So like cabinet work and furniture, like he's a beautiful craftsman. And he's also a general contractor. So he said, yes, because barrels are made of wood. It's totally the same. And Steve was like, great, get in here. Because there's like a wood boring beetle that sometimes makes its way up here from California, and they'll start at the end of the stave, and they'll eat their way into the barrel. And then once the alcohol hits them, it kills them. And then the pressure in the barrel will blast the dead bug out of the hole. And then you've got barrels full of holes. So Joseph spent the first little bit of his time at Clear Creek just with an oak dowel and a pencil sharpener and a little hammer and a little saw. And you'd sharpen it in the pencil sharpener, and you tap it into the barrel. And then you saw the dowel off, and then you'd sharpen it again. And it was like fixing all these holes in barrels. So yeah, he worked for Steve from 2005 to the end of 2009 before he went back to New York. He's originally from Cape Cod. He went back to New York and consulted on a few breweries and distillery operations that were opening up, and ended up being the head distiller at Green Jen Smith's. So he was the first distiller to distill anything in Brooklyn on this side of Prohibition. And then he met his wife Janet. They fell in love. They got married, wanted to come back to the Pacific Northwest. So he had been in Portland, I think, for 6+ months. And Hood River's Distillers had bought Clear Creek in 2014. They decided to move us out to Hood River. The head distiller that we had at the time wasn't interested in moving with the company. And Brad Whiting, who was our general manager for Hood River Distillers, knew that Joseph was still in Portland, and knew of his history with the brand and everything like that. And so reached out and was like, hey, we're moving to Hood River. I don't know if that's do you want to come back and do the thing? And so he was all about that. So for me, I call him Joseph because I was essentially hired to replace Joseph. I started in June of 2010. So he'd been gone for 6 months. And Joseph was the mechanically inclined person of the team at that time. And so it's incredible that, as we've been comparing notes over the years, the things that I desperately needed repairing by the time I was hired on, him having only been gone 6 months, where like nobody had really been there and, maintaining things and tightening bolts and nuts and what have you. So I was essentially his mechanical replacement on the floor, being a farm kid. And so I grew up with all of these Joseph stories because he's got such a kind, caring heart and such a big character.
He's a great guy.
He went by Joseph at that point in time. When he left to go to New York, he was just like, Joe is just simpler and faster. And so depending on where you met Joseph and how you know him is whether or not you call him Joe or Joseph. So I still call him Joseph.
That's
Anyhow, when he was hired, it's like we already knew each other. Joseph had visited a couple times over the years when I was working there. And then certainly with my hearing all of the stories of Joseph's first tenure. So he was hired at the beginning of 2017 and then left to go to Minden Mills, would have been the end of June in 23. So yeah, a couple of 5+ year stints in my 16 years that Joseph's been here.
Wow. So I remember, so when Jason Kennedy, my sales director at Glencairn, and he and I came out there. I think was it ACSA was having the conference?
I think so, yeah. And then you guys came out and you brought Liz Rhodes with you and you guys came out for the day.
That was fun. But if I remember, was it just the two of you or did you have one other person working?
It was just the two of us.
That seemed weird that there was only two of you doing all that stuff.
I think shortly after that we were three. So we added a wonderful young man named Garrett Trotter Ramos. And then after Joseph left, we hired another distiller, Everett Rubin. So we're still just a team of three to do all the things. We're doing all of the Clear Creek brandies. On any given year, we could be going through upwards of 1 million pounds of Pacific Northwest fruit brandies and liqueurs. We were also making McCarthy's, which is the first American single malts, which is now in a 3-year, a 6-year, and then a Pedro Jimenez share cask finish. We do some fun side project specialty finishes for different accounts over the years. So we always have some experiments cooking. But we're also doing some of the limited time offer finishes for the Trail's End. The finishing for the Trail's End Kentucky bourbon is mostly taken care of down at the plant, but we do some of the fun, silly stuff. And we're also making the DeGroff Amaro and Aperitivo for Ted Bro and Dale DeGroff. So yeah, we and Timberline vodka. So we keep very, very busy.
All right, we're back. I don't know if they'll probably be evident, but I dropped out, which I often do of society. Hey, Caitlin, one of the things I always loved what you guys made, and I'm curious if you're still making it. I think he was still making it when we came out there to visit. Was that eau de vive of Douglas fir?
Yes.
See,
actually, I love that is what you decided to talk about next because literally right before we jumped on this call, the distillers and I actually were checking out for Doug fir picking season. And it's actually, I think Friday and Monday and Tuesday, we're actually going to be picking Doug fir buds. So it happens really quickly. We usually don't, this is about as much a heads up as anybody ever gets.
Explain to folks how you guys make that. If it's what I remember, I always thought
it has not changed. The Doug fir has not changed in the entire 16 years. Nothing else that we have changed the processes on the last 16 years. So, the Douglas fir eau de vie, it's technically a Geist, and Geist is a German word for ghost. So it's called a Geist because it's not a true fermentation of the Douglas fir buds. What it is, it's a maceration and then a redistillation. So we work with the Hood River Forest Service, and we pay them a foraging fee, and we get a foraging license and parking permits, and then they give us a map where we're allowed to pick. We're picking buds on an organic tree farm just at the base of Mount Hood here in Oregon. And it's got an 85-year harvest cycle. So it's a lumber farm. So after every 85 years, they go through and pull off the trees and all these different plots. So I think for the rest of my career, we'll probably still be picking in the same spot. Given that I think the trees that we're picking are probably 25-ish or so years old. So yeah, got a bit of runway on that spot. But we pick, getting close to or just over 100 pounds of the Douglas fir buds. We only have like a 5-day window, give or take, to actually harvest all of those buds. If they start to get, so that the interior piece where all the needles are attached to is called the rachis. So if that interior piece starts to at all turn from bright chartreuse green to like kind of a tan red color and then to brown, that's the tree kind of developing all of the tree like nature of that bud, which represents the entire growth, the level growth of that tree for the year. It tastes really sappy and too earthy, and we want those bright, soft, green, citrusy buds of the Douglas fir tree. So it's kind of like picking popped popcorn off of the tips of the trees. But we pick around 100 pounds. It goes into wine-based brandy, and then that gets redistilled, and then we pick into it a second time to keep that pretty green color. So it is green in color in the bottle. Depending on the year, depending on what the trees give us, it goes anywhere from more emerald green to a little bit more of an army green. But that color is actually all natural green chlorophyll that comes from the buds themselves. So actually, as my email just dinged, I just got the forestry department picking permit for the foraging permit just came in my email.
See, I loved it. I loved it. And I loved the story. I just thought, wow, this is really labor intensive because it's
it is.
What is that? Is that a 200 ml bottle?
It's a 375. We've
That's
only ever sold it in the half size, in the pint size bottle.
And it's a really pretty color.
Completely unique. There's no other product like it out in the market. And true to Clear Creek Distillery, down to the McCarthy's American Single Malt, it had inspiration from other European products. So the inspiration for that is an eau de vie de bourgeon de sapin, which is an eau de vie or a geist made from pine needles. And so for Steve, this was really our love letter to the Pacific Northwest. So it was going to be Douglas fir trees, which not only the natives of the region would definitely eat the springtime buds, because one, they are citrusy and delicious, and two, they're packed with all kinds of vitamins and nutrients that usually coming out into the spring you were lacking.
I drink it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's all the
nutritional value.
Sure, it's all the vitamin C that's in there. So yeah, this was our love letter to the Pacific Northwest. This Douglas fir eau de vie.
I've always been a big big gin martini fan, especially London Dry. I'm one of those guys that like the pine character of gin, which always amazed when people say, you know what, I like gins that aren't piney. I go, what do you like, cars without wheels? I don't get it. What's wrong with you? So they when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, I'm just gonna hype up my gin, baby. You put a little of that into your glass and swirl it and add it some nice chilled gin.
Oh yeah,
sweet.
Oh, it's great. And like a split base Vesper, love it. Actually, we had
wonder like a Negroni would be good.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah, and it works great as like a sub for green chartreuse. It's not the same flavor, but it's the same, whimsical and earthy taste of adventure that comes with a little bit of chartreuse. So same but different, still fun, still delicious.
All right. So one other topic I want to talk to you about, because outside of the distillery, for the past year, you have been on the board of the American Craft Spirits Association. So you also have your finger on the pulse of what's going on out in the marketplace and just in the industry in general.
Yeah, it's actually worse than that, unfortunately, Marty. So not only am I on the board for the American Craft Spirits Association, I'm also on 4 of the volunteer subcommittees for ACSA. I'm also on the board for the Spirited Collective, which is women in non-binary and fermentation. We recently demonetized and got rid of the paid platform, and I built us a Discord server. So now we're a free community on Discord. So if anybody wants to reach out to my Instagram, which I know is going to flash up, send me a note. I can get them an invite to the Spirited Collective. And I'm also a member of the Pink Boot Society, which is women in non-binary and fermentation. And that's an international group, actually. So I'm happy to talk more about those. But Yeah, I find I've managed to sneak my way into all manner of community groups within fermentation and within spirits.
Wow. Look at you. Well, what do you think of the current state? What's good and what's bad that you're seeing out there right now?
We're still seeing pretty significant headwinds for small businesses, and I feel like that's something that is, spirits, not spirits. That's the difficulty. Is small businesses are having a hard time, maintaining their foothold, maintaining their place within their community. And we know that our small businesses are so important to our community because it's what gives it's what takes care of each other. What gives the culture and the backbone of any area is these small businesses. So with craft distilling being small businesses, yeah, things are really hard right now. But I think the one thing that is really great is that everybody's still dedicated into making these beautiful spirits and bringing them out to the world, and honestly making these beautiful spirits from local ingredients. So they're still dedicated in, working with their local farmers, working with their local, creatives, their label distributors, finding bottles that they can buy here. And really, as we're going through these tough times, now more than ever, everybody's willing to like pitch in and help each other. So we're seeing a lot more communication in between these small businesses, a lot of people trying to work together. Sailor Guevara, she's got the Sirens of Spirit that she's just started, which is, bringing all of these women-owned spirits brands together, but also on the business side, working together on marketing campaigns, working together on buying labels and buying bottles. Like, there are so many ways that we can continue to work together as small businesses where we're fighting for all of our space on the shelf and not just each individual business spot on the shelf.
Well, see, that brings up a good point because I know at ACSA they have the distiller guilds will have their meetings, and I find it very interesting that so many state distillery guilds are just so combative within their organizations that they don't follow the high tides float all boats kind of theory. A lot of times they still choose to fight against each other, which is weird because in my travels, I'll go and see a good distillery guild, Ohio. They put on these number of events, and they'll even put them on in near the three major markets, Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. Go down to Kentucky, even though like the Western Kentucky distilleries feel like they're so off the beaten path. They're kind of the redheaded stepchilds of everybody near Bardstown stuff. They started their own little their mini distillery trail. And distillery trails, I think, are huge. And I also like to see states really embrace these because it's perfect. You build these businesses and you build businesses, you create more jobs, you create more tax income, you get tourism, lots of tourism. And right now, Kentucky, there's a lot of small distilleries down there. So, the tourism is what's keeping them afloat. It's great. And a lot of them are selling out their spirits right out the front door. So I would like to see ACSA and American Distilling Institute, both organizations really push this more with distillery.
Well, I know we do have a distillery trail in Oregon, but I think and like I know this is recorded, but don't quote me on this. I don't think that there's really any organizers behind it at the moment. So that's actually something that's been on my to-do list, is to start reaching out, and getting that going again, because you're absolutely right. Building those local distillery trails and working together on building something that's really great for the local adventures and the traveling. I mean, people travel to Oregon for all the wonderful things that we have to share, right? Portland is an incredible food destination. And honestly, so is the rest of the state. And we've got, wineries and breweries and hiking and adventures to happen and whitewater rafting and
Bigfoot.
I can look at Bigfoot, Sasquatch, right? Absolutely, right? I can.
You guys have moose?
No, we don't have moose here.
You guys should
They're
have put
too
some
big
moose.
and they don't like us. But we've got mule deer, we've got black-tailed deer and antelope and cows and horses. And apparently just on the other side of the river in Washington is the largest Highland cow herd outside of Scotland.
Oh my God, I'm
You
there.
can not, I mean, it's like 25, 30 miles from the distillery. You could go see a coup.
I was actually on Ben Lomond, the hill, the mountain that overlooks Loch Lomond, and I was chasing Highland coos into the mist. So
That's exactly what you should be doing.
I know. That's what I should be doing right now.
Talking about McCarthy's and Clear Creek Distillery, bringing back that that tourism, bringing back that cooperative tourism between all of us is definitely something that I'm going to be working on in the next few months.
That's very key. And now you're going to be with. You're starting your second term. When you're a board member of ACSA, are you on as long as you want to be?
No, so it's a 3-year. It's a 3-year hitch.
3-year.
Yeah, and then
your second.
So I'm in my second year. Yep. So I've got two years left on my hitches on the board. But yeah, it's an incredible group of people. Couldn't be more thrilled to be with the team that we have right now. As ACSA, changes with our industry. Our industry is not what it was, 13, 14 years ago when ACSA started. And so ACSA is happy to make sure that we are evolving along with all the small businesses that come together to have us advocate for them on the Hill, to see those state legislative changes, to see those federal legislative changes, because that's what ACSA is here for. ACSA is a place for all of our small craft distilling businesses to come together and work together and lobby together to see that real change on the state and federal level. Because we're all aware in the United States here, the laws are for alcohol, for sin juice, as I like to call it, they're a mess, and they change sometimes from city to county to state to region, and it's all different, and trying to maintain compliant and it's certainly as you grow becomes such a nightmare. And honestly, the cards are so stacked against small businesses when it comes to being able to get our products to consumers, that it takes all of us to work together to see that change. And that's what ACSA started doing 13 years ago. That's what ACSA plans on continuing to do, is being that voice for all of the small businesses.
Yeah, I think if you're a small distillery, you team up with other small distilleries and you create a reason for people to come by and visit you all, and really, in a lot of ways, you save so much more money than going out into the marketplace, and you let the word of mouth. There's some breweries I know of that people just go and buy cases. They'll drive 100 miles, a couple hundred miles, and go pick up that beer because you can only get it at the brewery. That's what you can do. And events, weddings, if you have that kind of setup. If you can have events at your distillery, huge money makers. People like to get married. I'm bringing funerals.
Sure.
Distilleries.
Honestly, like a funeral at a distillery, like that's a wide open market. For
Irish wakes, and distilleries can also offer big giant bottles for coffins that people, you just put the body in it, fill it with alcohol. People are taking home. There you go.
No, Marty, you've gone too far. A step too far. Nobody wants Grandpa pickled in a bottle on the shelf at all.
Oh, you think nobody wants Grandpa pickled in a bottle? I think there's loads of folks who go, oh my God.
I'm not sure if McCarthy's is going to be the first.
I'm not saying you guys.
You
guys don't have to do it.
Love the idea of having a funeral at a distillery.
There's somebody out there is called Undertaker Distillery. Oh, come on. I'm throwing that out there. That is for somebody to just take that ball, pick it up, and run with it.
That's why we keep you. And that's why we love you. You're just an ideas man.
I am.
Where would we be without you?
I'm throwing life preservers off the Titanic for folks to cling on to, float away.
I'm going to float away from me.
Well, thank you, little Caitlin. Sorry about our little interruption. We had a little blurp,
Yeah, no
blip.
worries.
I'm
Absolutely no
pretty
worries.
sure
Happy
it's
to be
because
here.
I
I hope,
mentioned the aliens and the Bigfoot.
yeah, hope you're willing to have me on again and talk a little
Yeah,
bit more about McCarthy's and certainly American Single Malt. We're talking about the moving and the shaking of industry. American Single Malt is still making its mark across shelves across the country. I was just in Texas last week and excited to make some placements for McCarthy's, but we just had the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission meeting. We're still working on things to make sure that we see that category, represented not only on liquor shelves and, having its own carve out, an actual sign that says, by the way, here are the American Single Malts, but also to see that representation on whiskey lists and in restaurants and stuff as well. So,
yeah. And I highly recommend this. I really do. This is, I really, really enjoyed the 3-year-old.
mhm,
But when I had the 6-year-old,
mhm,
I was blown away. And I thought, wow, that is so rich. This is,
mhm.
in fact, I even brought a couple bottles to some friends in Ireland
Oh, well, thank you.
that
Very nice.
were, they were really intrigued by it, and I brought it, and they loved it.
Yeah,
Um,
McCarthy's, Steve McCarthy, an incredible legend. Joseph and I both owe our career to that man. We did lose him a couple years ago to Parkinson's, but
oh,
his
the
wife
Parkinson's.
Cindy is still around, and I still keep in touch with his daughter. She still has the cabin up here, not far from the distillery. But yeah, Steve and his idea to start a craft distillery in Portland, Oregon, and then ending up being the first American single malt. Not because he saw a giant hole missing in production and on the liquor store shelves, but just because he was passionate about the distillery. He was passionate about Oregon agriculture and happy to bring something to market that represented all of that. So,
Well, he certainly did. He was a unique guy. I really liked him. All right, little Caitlin, thank you very much for your time. You're a busy, 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 busy woman. You have loads of things you're doing. And you have your fingers in so many pies.
yep.
So I'll let you get back to those pies.
Mhm,
Make
mhm.
sure that they're all well cooked, I guess.
Sure.
Not cooked,
Appreciate that.
baked.
Nate,
Um,
stuff.
Yeah,
I was going to give it to you.
I don't know how to cook it. So I
Thank you
wouldn't know.
so much, Marty, for having me on. I know you have somebody scheduled behind me, but it was genuinely a pleasure to spend some time with you on a Monday morning. It's always good to see your smiling face on the other side of the screen.
All right, look, Caitlin. Well, we'll have you back, babes. You
Awesome.
be good.
Be safe. Make good choices.
Give my best to Sasquatch Bigfoot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for spending time with us on I Drink, Therefore I Am. You can watch every episode of the podcast inside Hospitality Nexus, a global, human-first platform bringing the hospitality ecosystem together in one place. Inside the Nexus, it's a career fair that never closes, connecting industry leaders, educators, students, employers, and partners through real presence. Create your free account and explore the community at www.hospitalitynexus.org. And until next time, sip thoughtfully, drink responsibly, Sláinte.